What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow. So today we are back going to be talking about Survivor season 46, episode 5. It is our last pre merge episode. So my name is Rachel.
I'm Alyssa, and this was a very special episode because for the first time, Yanu won. So I feel like this episode was great. We broke some Survivor records. We failed to break some other Survivor records. It was a whole time. This was a good episode. I feel like fun dynamics, fun vote out. I think it was one of my favorite episodes of this season so far.
I am really glad that Purple won this episode because they were so down at the start of the episode all the way through the immunity challenge, like warranted, because their tribe sucks. They've had to continuously go to tribal council while the other teams are winning reward, winning immunity. And like it was just getting really tough to watch. Like everyone was sad and mopey until the immunity challenge. I'm just like, this is not fun anymore.
Yeah, like I want to watch people having fun on Survivor, and I want if they're down in the dumps, I want it to be down in the dumps because of something that they could control. But it felt like Purple never really had a chance. Like they just had the weakest team overall, and like we've talked about, once you vote one person out, you kind of just like snowball because like the green team got to sit out half of their tribe in this immunity challenge. So I feel like definitely it was so good to see Purple finally have some pep back in their step, have something good happen to them, just because, like, rooting for the underdog.
It's never fun watching one team, one person, one group of people lose continuously, even in like other shows or sports. It's like you don't want to always see one team losing all of the time, you know? So I'm glad they finally won. At the start of the episode, too, we see Q wanting to fake quit in order to keep Kenzie comfortable just in case Purple went to tribal again, so that Kenzie wouldn't like play the shot in the dark or anything like that. Q says that he was willing to pass out and die before he quits in confessional, which is interesting because this is like opposite of what Jelinski said in the Sweat versus Savvy challenge, where Jelinski said that Q wanted to quit Sweat and Savvy too, but that's not the narrative that we got on the episode. I do wonder if it's like Q saying he wants to quit, like, oh, to keep Kenzie comfortable in, and then Sweat versus Savvy saying he wants to quit, but like actually he's using it as bait.
Yeah, I've heard that too, where people are confused, or not confused, but just wondering whether or not it was strategy for Q to kind of bait Jelinski into quitting. But I feel like Jelinski took the bait way too far. And I feel like one thing that's been kind of interesting is because they didn't go to tribal tonight, we didn't get to see whether or not the bait that Q set would have worked or not, like whether or not Kenzie genuinely believed that he wanted to quit. Because I feel like one of the things about the idea of like, oh, maybe I want to quit, maybe you should just vote me out, is I feel like that might come back to bite him later on because like no one wants to be in a alliance with someone who's constantly on the verge of quitting. So it's like, will Kenzie mention that Q wants to quit to people once they merge and then that changes his game? Because I feel like that's a legitimate possibility. So I wonder how far ahead Q thought with the whole quitting thing. Because, like, yeah, it might save you tonight, but what about in the future?
It is like an interesting strategy. You're trying to lower your threat level basically, and we've seen like different iterations, like okay, Tyson as a big immunity challenge threat getting injured and then having his arm in a sling even though it wasn't really that bad, so people would see him as more like weak or injured, so that they're like, ah, we can beat a one-armed dude in these challenges. Q wanting to fake quit, maybe it's strategy, maybe it's just him wanting to fake quit, but it seems like it's maybe more strategy given like the shot in the dark comment and stuff like that. But Yeah, I don't know. If people truly believe that you want to quit all the time, they might be like less willing to give you $1 million. They might be less willing to keep you in their inner circle of the alliance because you might seem flaky or an unreliable alliance member. But I do think fake quitting could be interesting. We'll see how it plays out for him. It sort of reminds me of like Liz saying that she's rich all the time to lower her threat level. Q, as a big athletic dude, you might be like, yo, let's keep him around. He's sad all the time. He wants to quit. He's not doing anything. Let's not vote him out, even though we're in the individual portion of the challenges now.
Yeah, I guess also, like, when do you become the boy that cried wolf? Like, when do people realize that Q is just doing this for the sake of, like, strategy instead of being legitimately wanting to quit? Because I feel like he's used the strategy twice already, and it's only, what, day 12, I guess, is where we're going to be starting next time. So it's kind of like, if on day 12 we've already pulled this twice, like, maybe you need to back off a little bit. Otherwise, people are going to start wising up to realizing you're not actually interested in quitting.
True. And maybe Q could say, like, hey, we won the immunity challenge. I've got pep in my step again. I don't want to quit anymore. I was just really bummed out before because we kept losing and we suck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm interested to see where that goes because I feel like Q. It's hard to tell whether the Purple Tribe is being set up to be major players in like the rest of the season, or if we've just seen so much of them because they're the losing loser who's lose. Because I feel like we've seen so much more of them than everybody else, but they've also gone to tribal so much. So I'm interested to see like where the Purple Tribe goes now that we're like
Hmm.
working towards merge and seeing what happens with them. I would be sad if they
True.
all went out soon, but that's just Survivor
Honest,
sometimes.
yeah, honestly, I feel like at the merge next week, fake merge kind of thing, I could see if you get a 1-2 split where like Kenzie's on one team for this challenge and like Q and Tiffany are on the other team kind of thing, I could see like green and orange just banding together and be like, yo, let's vote this odd person out. Let's vote the purple person out because it's like what, 2 teams of 6? Who
Mm-hmm.
cares? Like, let's just vote that person out. So, I could see that happening as like, "Hey, it's an easy vote at the merge, like, this person doesn't have that many alliance members, let's just get rid of them."
Yeah, but I think you could also argue that with two teams of six, maybe you want to pull in the odd person out to weaken one of the other tribes that actually has numbers. Because if you do 5 versus 5 with the 3 in the middle as swing votes, then I feel like that's kind of dangerous. Where if you could do like 5 versus 4, or like even if you could make it a 5-3-3 with the way that you vote, like I think that a lot of people always talk about taking out the swing vote, but maybe it's better for you if you don't take out the swing vote and you just take out someone who's like directly opposed to you.
I think it will depend on what the challenge teams are picked as because I
Mm-hmm.
can see Orange next week flipping on each other. If like Venus and Soda are in the challenge team together and their team loses, I can see infighting there. But for Green, I feel like if they have a majority in the losing team of the challenge, I think they probably just set aside their differences, bring Mo back in, and then just vote together to vote the odd person out. I feel like Orange is gonna combust next week.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like from the preview that Orange is going through some stuff because we saw people kind of chatting about what's happening, and Venus's name got brought up, Liz and Soda's names got brought up. So definitely think that Orange is gonna be kind of imploding, like you said.
And I think that's the hindrance of not having gone to a tribal. Like, sure, they lost Brandon, but they didn't vote him out. I feel like if I were on Survivor, I would low key want to lose at least one challenge before a merge or a tribe swap. So then you can really know who you can trust because. Sure, you can say, yeah, me as Hunter and Tevin, we're close as a duo, but like you haven't tested that bond. You haven't actually voted together to test it and trust them. So I feel like I would want to go to tribal at least once before to like figure out the ups and downs of your team, figure out where people actually lay, like who is just giving lip service and who can you actually trust. Because going into the merge and not truly knowing, you might be like, I think we're good with Liz, but Liz actually hates you all. You don't know that.
Yeah, and I think also it just lets you hash some things out. Like it lets you figure out whether or not people are annoyed by you. And I think one of the things I think about a lot is like, is anyone telling Soda that they're annoyed with her? Like people keep on being like, oh yeah, like Soda's annoying or whatever. But then it's like, how do you expect anyone to change their behavior if you're not telling them that their behavior is a problem? Like I think one of the good things about the Purple Tribe was they like told Banu like, bro, you're a loose cannon. We can't have that. And they gave him an opportunity to change it, and he didn't. And like at that point, it becomes his thing that he didn't change his behavior, and not their thing for not telling him like, hey, you're annoying people. And like I guess you can make the argument that people should be self-aware enough to realize when they're being annoying, but that's just one thing I'm curious about. Like do people know when they're annoying other people? And then is it fair to vote them out for something they didn't even know they were doing? And I guess Survivor doesn't have to be fair, but that's kind of where my
Yeah.
mind was.
I would say, like, in real life friendships and relationships, you should tell the person that like you're annoyed with their actions or something they said, because I think in like a real life friendship or relationship it would be wrong to just be like, we're breaking up because you're annoying me, but you never told the person that what they did or said bothered you. In
Mm-hmm.
Survivor, I'm like, maybe you don't need to tell that person. It would be nice if you gave them a heads up, like, hey, you're coming across this way, don't do that. Like coaching, like we saw Q doing with Banu last episode. But in Survivor, I feel like if someone is a sinking ship, you let them go.
Yeah, let them sink themselves instead of taking you down too.
Speaking of friendships, we see Ben and Charlie, our new besties. They're having more music battles that we aren't seeing on camera with different artists. I'm like, this is pretty wild. We hear in the long run from multiple people that Ben is very dangerous. He is very charismatic. He's very fun. So he could be a shield potentially now, but he's dangerous in the long run because he's got a good social game.
Yeah, I thought that kind of tracked with what we saw about Ben, where
Mm-hmm.
he just seems like someone that everyone likes. It also, I wonder if it's going to become obnoxious, like when they do merge. Because I think we've talked before about how some people find someone like really fun and engaging, and some people are like, this person annoys the shit out of me. And kind of maybe Ben will become less of a social threat after you merge because those people will find him annoying rather than fun, or egotistical rather than charismatic. So I'm curious to see like how that winds up happening once they get the merge, because Ben does survive till the merge.
It is interesting because the green tribe, it's like, oh, the kumbaya tribe. Everyone likes each other. Everyone is going pee and poo together, but not actually pooing together. But like they are very, very friendly together. But like in exit press, Jem is saying, yeah, actually, I thought Ben was really annoying. His like rock puns all the time were really annoying. So what you're saying, maybe in small doses, like us watching him on the TV, it's fun and he's cool and quirky. But like in real life, if you hear every other sentence as a that doesn't rock, bro, it might be a lot more annoying.
Yep, for sure. So I don't know. I think it also is partially your tolerance for annoyingness. Like some people can tolerate other people being annoying a lot better than others. So I'm curious about that. Like maybe Jem is not as good at hiding that she was annoyed as she thought, and that's part of why she got voted out. Like there's so much that we just don't know, and I feel like it's one of those things where whenever we have these longer episodes, I'm like, oh, long episode, but I'm also kind of like, are they showing us the right things? Because there are still some things that I'm confused about. I'm like, we had 90 minutes every week to go through this, and you still didn't show me the answer to this really important question. Come on, dude. So,
R.I.P. On a side note, I feel like Ben has really nice eyes. Like they kept on showing really close-ups of his eyes. I'm like, they are really pretty color.
I did not notice Ben's eyes at all. The only eyes that I noticed was Kenzie's eyes because they like started the episode on like a shot of Kenzie's eyes. And I was like, wow, her eyes are really blue. So I guess we have different focuses when it comes to eyes.
Kenzie also has really nice eyes. So we go to Orange Team. Their Beware advantage did get rehidden after Randon left with it. I really liked the editing of this sequence. Like it was quick cuts to everyone's confessionals. And it hit the whole tribe of like, oh, I'm looking, I can't find it. Liz is saying, yeah, I'm just gonna lay here. I'm downplaying my threat. I'm not looking for any idols. I loved the editing of this sequence.
Yeah, I think the Liz part was especially interesting to me because I'm like, are you actually downplaying your threat here or do you just not want to bother looking? I feel like that's a funny thing that you can say. Like, you can be like, I'm managing my threat level by not looking for an idol, but really you're just lazy and don't want to. And like, both are totally valid. So Liz can do what
We
Liz wants.
She loves laying. She's got too much money. That's a poor person's thing to look for idols. Venus is also looking. She just hangs around Hunter. I'm like, okay, good for her. We always see in Survivor, like, oh, the person that you don't want to find the idol finds the idol because no one bothered to like keep track of them, to follow them around, to keep eyes on them, to make sure they don't find any advantages or idols. So, like, good for Venus for hanging around Hunter, but I feel like their conversation was just off on her end. Like I guess I get where she's coming from. Like, yeah, Hunter, you're a big threat. You're a meat shield. I'm going to keep you around. But it felt very weird of her just saying, "Yeah, Hunter, you're a threat. I'm like I want to vote you out, but actually I want to keep you."
For me, it was just kind of confusing because she's like following him around, and then naturally, as soon as she stops following him, is when he actually finds it. So I'm kind of like, did you actually spend all your time following him around just to give up? And then as soon as you give up on following him around is when he finds it? Like, ugh. If you're going to do that, commit and don't stop following them around. You got to just stalk them for the rest of their lives.
Exactly. You guys are tied by the hip. If you didn't want Hunter to find it, he can never be alone ever again.
Exactly.
Besties.
Besties.
But Hunter finds the Beware advantage. His team ends up being the one that doesn't lose a challenge. We thought maybe Green wasn't going to lose a challenge because when Jem found it, then we heard the clause about you can get the idol at the merge. So ends up not being Green, ends up being Hunter's team because Hunter is too OP at these challenges. He doesn't have a vote currently, but I guess they will hide the next clue for him to get the idol next time when they merge. And Hunter is funny here. He says, looking at the other team's performance, I don't think we're losing.
Yeah, that was funny. I do think it was like neat fake out that they like showed us when it was Jem's advantage, but then it actually became relevant for Hunter because I do think a lot of people were kind of like, oh, because they showed us this, it's gonna be Jem that doesn't end up like finding it. So kudos to the editing team for not making that one super obvious.
Exactly. I agree. So we get to the immunity challenge. You have to go through an obstacle to get the keys, release sandbags, and then shoot targets. Jeff here, funny, sassy Jeff, he says, and the last tribe to finish. Oh, you just losers, losing immunity. And he says, no, Yanu.
Yeah, that was brutal. I was like, Jeffrey, do you really need to kick them while they're down? But, it was still funny. I liked that the Yanu 3 like took it as a joke instead of getting offended. So good for them.
It was cute, funny. I feel like Jeff here, though, is obsessed with the wrong records. He's like, the longest without Flint. If they lose this, they're the biggest losers in the new era. They continue to lose the most immunity challenges. I feel like he's focused on the wrong stuff. Like, these are bad records. You want to hold the record for winning most immunity. If like your tribe keeps losing because you suck, you have no Flint, and like you can't even make fire, so therefore you can't cook any food. You're going to suck even more. it's just not something I feel like we should be focusing on.
Yeah, like it felt like he was trying to emphasize like, oh, you guys suck so much, but I feel like a lot of people have talked about like there's reasons in the way the game was designed that purple sucked so much, and it wasn't necessarily like they were the worst tribe ever. It was just like the way the new era is designed makes it so it's a downward spiral. And so yeah, it almost felt like Jeff was telling on himself, like, here are all the things we did that made your life harder, and you guys suck so bad because of them. And it's like, it's not really your fault, guys. Not really your fault.
Yeah, I think too obsessed with the wrong things because it's like what we've talked about this entire season. Okay, you don't have Flint, you're voting people out, you don't have fire. So, like Tiffany says, oh, I'm not going to go to bed cold tonight. So, you can't even sleep well if you don't have fire. And then it's like you can't even boil water, you can't cook fish or rice or whatever other stuff. And it's like, it's a cycle, just like in real life, cycles of having a lack of resources affects you and like future generations. The lack of resources for the losingest tribe continues to affect them. So it's not like Q, Tiffany, and Kenzie are like the least athletic people here. It's like they keep having a bad draw over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought this challenge was really fun. It was very stressful. It was a close challenge. I think it was so fun because it was so close at the end, like one sandbag hitting the target off. And I felt like in the sandbag shooting portion, I thought it was good that everyone had to hit a target on the 3-person team rather than like one person being able to shoot all 3 targets down. It's more equal when it's like each person has to carry some weight in the challenge.
Yeah, because then you can't have someone like Hunter just beast mode it.
Exactly. So I thought the slow-mo of Purple's faces when Q hits that last shot, I thought was so good. I was like, "Oh, they're so excited. I'm so happy for them. Like, this is great."
Yeah, it was so good. They got like the slow mo epic shot. I don't know. I think the only reason that I felt bad was I felt bad for Tim because it felt like Jeff was blaming it on him because like, oh, Tim's much slower at reloading, and it's like, oh, there were a lot of things that led to, you know, Green being behind, and Tim being a slow reloader at the slingshot is not the only reason that they lost.
Yeah, and I feel like with Jeff being obsessed with the wrong, like, records, I feel like there's some articles recently on Reddit of Jeff basically saying, "Yeah, we like the teams to be tortured so much so that when they finally win, like Purple wins here, we get this over the top reaction. Like we see Purple crying. They're so excited to finally have won. They say, "Is this what it feels like to win?" And I feel like that's just emphasizing the wrong things again. Like to have them be so depleted and tortured that you just get this better television shot. Like, sure, it's cool to see them win, but it's cool each week to see the team celebrate. Like, you want to have teams win and lose, so you get the happy reactions and the sad reactions. It just sucks to see them sad each week because they continue to lose.
Yeah, it feels better when it's more equal between them because I think also like Orange Tribe still hasn't lost. So I think it's one of those things where I would have liked to see the utter devastation of like Orange Tribe losing for the first time and kind of, like you said, balancing. And then also because it feels kind of forced that one tribe is the worst tribe, also, it feels like production is meddling, even if they're not necessarily meddling. Like they're not rigging the challenges so that Purple always loses, but it's designed in the game. So
Yeah, like it was cool to see Purple win this episode, but it was also fun to watch Green lose and then to see their sad faces and they're all like mopey and they don't really know what to do because they've never lost before. Like, if you had them lose episode 2, we could see that reaction, and then maybe Orange Team would lose and we'd see that reaction. Like, similar with the auction, I feel like it's fun to watch people get crappy auction food. It's fun to watch people lose when they haven't lost yet to like knock people off a peg.
yes, it's nice to see some variety.
So we go to a journey. Hunter, since his team wins, gets to go on the journey. He lets the other teams pick. Whereas when they won last time, Liz picked the other two people. So they get to volunteer also, and it's Tim for green and Q for purple. I feel like on this journey, Q maybe talked a little bit too much. It seems like he was giving a lot of information. He is saying, okay, us three are the physical threats. Let's each get someone and make it a six. So basically, like an onion alliance, like we've seen in Big Brother. I was very surprised that everyone was truthful here about who their picks were. Like Q saying, yeah, Tiffany's my pick. Tim says Maria's his pick. And Hunter says Tevin is his pick. And I'm like, okay, for us as a viewer, this is like very truthful. Wouldn't you lie about who your pick is?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like generally these people are not good at keeping their mouths shut, because then next week with the preview, we kind of see people also running their mouths. So I wonder if it's just these people aren't good at keeping secrets. Or maybe they don't want to lie and then be known as a liar later on. Because I think it becomes pretty evident if you um lie in that situation. Like if you say like, oh, Soda's my pick, and then you like never talk to her, someone's gonna be like, oh, that's weird. So, or also if you lie about it, you can then stir up stuff among the other duos. Like if Tevin really actually is closest to, again, I keep getting stuck on Soda, but like if Tevin really is closest to Soda, but then he's hanging around Maria the most, then you go and say like, oh, Tevin, like, you know? So I think being truthful isn't the worst thing, just because it might be self-evident anyway.
Yeah, like it is really interesting because you're basically telling on yourself. So now for like orange and green, you can sort of verify what Banu said because Q picked Tiffany here. If Q picked Kenzie here, maybe it would look like Banu is just a wackadoodle and not actually knowing the correct tribe dynamics. But Q's saying Tiffany here, it's like, okay, so they actually are close. They actually are a duo because he picked her to be in this alliance. Tim also says that Maria has the extra vote. So he's just sharing information he doesn't need to share. But yeah, I don't know. Surprised that Hunter would say Tevin and not just like Liz or someone else random. Because it does seem like you're giving a lot of information. Because if I were there, I'd be like, okay, so Tim and Maria are potentially a duo, even though Maria, as we've seen as the viewer, doesn't think Tim is her number one, and Maria and Charlie are the true one and two. But like Hunter and Tevin seem like they're the one and two on Orange. So it's interesting. I would just keep an eye out for who the person said is their person they're bringing into this alliance.
Yeah, it's a lot to keep an eye on in the future, and I'm curious to see how that affects the merge.
So for the journey, they have to do a survivor knowledge test. You have to arrange 20 survivor logos in chronological order. I thought this was a fun, interesting trivia challenge, but probably hard for like everyone watching. I don't know. A lot of people don't watch Survivor in order. Like you're not eating, and like it's probably going to be difficult for a lot of people to complete.
Yeah. I think also the fact that it wasn't like 20 consecutive seasons might make it harder. Like, I feel like if you gave them like the first 20 seasons or the most recent 20 seasons, that might be easier than just like 20 random seasons, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because then it's like you don't really know what's been skipped unless you memorized all of the seasons in order. And maybe now people will start practicing that, like practicing with Flint and Fire going out before Survivor. I think it might have been easier if you did it by like the winners of each season. That might be easier than like logos in chronological order. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I probably would have gotten those early seasons mixed up like Hunter did. Those all just sort of blend together, and I'm not rewatching those. So, like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a friend of mine and I were talking about like she's able to name all winners of Survivor in order. And so I'm curious, I might text her later and be like, do you think you could have done that like logo challenge? Just because knowing the winners is very different from knowing the logos. So
Yeah, I feel like they wanted to do this trivia just because they wanted to get these flashback clips in. So it's like Hunter was talking about Tyson and Parvati and Boston Rob. They just wanted to get these clips in of these famous people.
Yeah. I also was wondering whether or not this challenge is like intended to be completable. Like, do they believe that any random person who goes on Survivor would be able to do this? Because, like, I feel like Hunter is one of the people who calls himself a Survivor superfan. There are other people on this season who do not call themselves Survivor superfans. So they would have not a snowball's chance in hell. So, like, was this challenge intended on being completable? Or was it intended on just being a tough challenge to kind of, like you said, give them the opportunity to use all their flashbacks?
And it's good, like, Hunter sort of knows like, he knows Survivor, so he's able to be like, "Oh, yeah, Tocantins has Tyson, my favorite player. This one is Boston Rob. Parvati played before this season, and then she won this other season she was on." But it's like, if you got a dodo in there, if you got 3 dodos at the table and they're like, none of us actually know Survivor trivia," like, they wouldn't be able to be a good narrator at this. They'll be like, pretty colors. I think I've heard this season before, but I've actually only started watching in the new era or like during the pandemic, so I don't actually know any of these other things.
Yeah, I feel like that would almost be more fun. Like, just to have someone who's a complete dodo.
Like, what the heck is this word? I have never heard of this country. But Hunter loses. He loses his vote at the merge. He could double lose his vote if he doesn't find the idol next time. And we learned that Hunter is bad at something, which is honestly very great to see because we've seen Hunter be good at everything else. So I'm like, he's a normal person. He can't do the survivor trivia. Great.
And the thing is, of all of the things to be bad at, I feel like knowing 20 Survivor logo, like, is that really like something that you should be proud of being able to do? So I feel like of all of the things to be bad at, like, he's still not a normal person. He's still a Superman. So
Time for all of us to get studying. Gotta do some flashcards, logos, winners. Next, they'll be like, who's the second place boot of every season in order?
Lord
You know,
Almighty,
Rob Sesternino would know, actually. He should be on there.
probably. You know, they should cast Rob Sesternino on a season of Survivor.
Wow.
Brand new
uh,
idea right there.
Survivor trivia. Which seasons were Boston Rob on? List them. And then what did he place on each of these seasons? We'll just make the trivia so hard.
Yeah.
But because Green lost immunity, we see a lot of Green this episode. The biggest thing was Jem's Beware advantage. We saw some of it last week with Jem making everyone go on a wild goose chase, rehiding her Beware advantage clue so that these people are digging holes for 3 days straight and not finding anything. And then people are like, yo, someone has rehidden this. Jem, I feel like it was sort of weird for me after the challenge when Jem says to the entire group, "Let's go hunt for idols alone." That might tip people off. That might be a little bit sketchy. Like if you're the Charlie's Angels alliance and someone in your alliance is like, "Let's go all look for idols," but alone, no one follow me around. You might have your antenna raised like, "Yo, what the heck? I thought we were in a tight foursome. Why do you want to go hunt alone? You should be feeling safe because we have this good alliance." I feel like her thing was harder than Tiffany's. I don't know, doing the perimeter and all the math and stuff, it just seemed like there's a lot of room for error.
Yeah, hers definitely seemed a lot harder than Tiff's. But I think the thing about this that was so like chef's kiss was that Jem basically voted herself out by not being willing to trust anyone with the information that she had in Idol. Like she says, like, oh, I'm so close with these girls, isn't willing to tell any of them that she has an idol. And I feel like that's part of the reason why she ended up going home. So sucks to be Jem.
Yeah, and like saying let's go hunt alone, tip people off. Jem talking with Ben and Tim and being a little bit cagey. She says in exit interviews, yeah, like the women's plan, we were all going to talk to everyone. Like, it's not weird that I was talking with Ben and Tim and like trying to get them to give me a name kind of thing. But I feel like in the clips that we saw in the episode, she comes off very strong. Like, oh, I don't know who I'm voting for. I don't know any plans. Give me the name. I'm going to vote with you. Like, that's not necessarily a good alliance member because I feel like in an alliance, you want to bounce ideas back and forth. So just saying, yeah, I don't know what's happening. Give me a name. Obviously, it's going to look like you're fishing for information. And it seems like Ben and Tim caught on to that.
Yeah, it seems like she just came on too strong. And I feel like part of that is like first tribal nerves. Like the first time anyone goes to tribal, I feel like everyone's really like jumpy because they don't want to be the first boot. They don't want to be the first boot off of their tribe. So it seems like Jem just like couldn't chill. And I guess better to find that out now than post merge.
I agree with the chill. I feel like coming off too strong, doing too much too fast, like being bored at camp because they haven't been to tribal yet. So, oh, I'm bored. Let's spice it up. Let me go hide my Boer advantage. So we go on this wild goose chase because it'll be funny because we haven't lost anything. It's too kumbaya. It's boring. It seems like all of these things did bite her in the butt a little bit. And it's like interesting to see we heard last week, oh yeah, Tim probably has the idol. But this week we see Tim totally calling out Jem correctly that Jem is the one that hid the fake clue. And then he calls out the Women's Alliance to Jem's face, which I thought was really interesting because we haven't really seen too much of Tim yet. And then he just like totally gets all of these reads correct. Whether he's just saying and throwing out random things and then you see what lands and you see the other person's reactions and then you can gauge whether, oh, this is true that she hid the clue or this is not true because she doesn't have the correct reaction to it, would be interesting to know. Like, was Jem doing more sus stuff on the island that got Tim to be sus of her and other people to be sus of her? Or like, where did this read come from?
Yeah, this whole thing just seems kind of weird. Like, I feel like Tim's edit has generally been pretty weird because we got not a lot of him, but like a bit of him in the premiere when he and Maria were chatting, and then he like disappeared when Maria decided that Charlie was going to be her number one. And now, last time, everyone was randomly suspecting that Tim had the idol, and now Tim's back in the forefront with the correct read on Jem. Like, I do not understand what the editors are doing with Tim's arc. Like, is he just going home soon? So they don't want, like, what's going on with Tim? I feel like I'm confused.
Yeah, like I would want more information on like why Tim thought Jem hid the Beware advantage. There must be more here that leads to her getting voted out, or like why did Charlie and Maria choose to go with the men over the women here? And like low key comes full circle because I feel like Jem hiding her Beware advantage again and then planting it, saying that Tim probably has the real idol, makes everyone want to split the votes and put the votes on Ben in case Tim does pull out an idol, which then bites Jem in the butt because Charlie doesn't want to vote Ben out because they're newly besties. So basically, like she hid the Beware advantage, which then inadvertently gets her voted out because Charlie doesn't want to vote Ben out. Maybe Charlie would have voted Tim out.
Yeah, just this whole thing was a whole mess. Jem should have chilled a little and things. She might still have gotten voted out, but I feel like it would have been less of a. I mean, it wasn't even her directly. It wasn't like it was a 5-0 vote with her getting voted out, but I feel like she would have had more of a fighting chance if she didn't go at it so hard.
Yeah, like I want to know why Maria and Charlie chose the guys over the girls. Maria in the episode says she trusts the women more than the men. Jem is more loyal. We hear Charlie say that Ben can be a shield. So, like, what was the deciding factor here? I would want to know some answers to that. But I feel like for Maria, choosing Tim's side here technically could be a good thing for her because Tim is bringing her into the Alpha Bro Alliance. So if Maria did screw Tim over here and split votes on him and Ben with the Charlie's Angels Alliance, then Maria would not be invited to the Alpha Bro Alliance. Tim would pick a new number one. So, like, inadvertently, this could be good for Maria going with the men.
Yeah, I feel like it could be good for her going with the men, and I think that's why she did it. Because I think that Mo will like forgive her for quote unquote flipping, and I think that they could still be able to work together. Whereas, not sure she would have been able to continue working with Jem. So I feel like Maria is actually in a really solid position.
I agree. Maria definitely is because Mo probably more forgiving, like you're saying. Tim might have a vendetta because they did the whole parents' allegiance thing. And if you break that parents' bond, I feel like people would be a little bit butthurt. Also, I feel like if they truly believed that Jem was the one that made them dig for 3 days straight, they're probably thinking that's a dick move on her end because like what we said last week, if you were Maria, you're going to feel butthurt that your girl bestie here made you dig and put this fake target on your back, but you didn't actually find the real beware advantage, but like people were laughing at you behind your back.
Yeah, I also thought Jem's like parting confessional when she was like, serves them right for voting me out. They deserve to have to dig all those 3 days. I was kind of like, Jem, bestie, maybe if you hadn't done that, then you wouldn't have gotten voted out. So
uh It's funny. Maria, she should know that she didn't find the real Beware advantage because she could vote at this tribal council. I think that also confirms that what they found was fake and there's nothing in that hole that they dug. But like they could bury a lot of things in there now. They could hide things in there. Maria, she uses her extra vote at this tribal council, which a lot of people online are like flaming her for. I feel like it's not necessarily a bad thing, especially because Tim spilled the beans to people at the journey that she has an extra vote. So, like, not having it anymore could get the target off her back come merge. On the flip side, you could say come merge where it's split 6-6 potentially with the fake merge happening. You might want an extra vote because things could get really, really dicey. But also, I feel like at this last tribal before the merge, you might just be like, let's play it safe. Like Maria, Tim, and Ben have all been on journeys. You don't know if these people have extra votes or have lost their vote. You really don't know who actually has votes. Maybe Tim and Ben both lost their vote. If Tim actually does have the idol beware advantage, but he hasn't gotten the idol yet, like you don't know. I feel like using the extra vote can try to basically solidify Maria's plan, make it more foolproof. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to use. Us as a viewer, we know that Ben has a vote, Charlie has a vote, Maria has a vote. It's going to be 3-2, but maybe, or Tim has a vote, not Ben. Like, as a player, you might think Tim and Ben both don't have votes because they both went on journeys. You don't know.
yeah, I feel like maybe having more of the like mysticism where I think that maybe Maria used her extra vote to cover up for the fact that Ben didn't have a vote. And so
Mm-hmm.
now, if people don't know either of those things, they might think that Maria still has an extra vote and Ben has his vote. And then, like, there's a lot of it muddies the waters, which can be a good thing, can also be a bad thing. So I'm curious to see whether or not that comes up.
That's true because she did write her two gem votes differently. One was like gem and one was gem's full name. So you could fake it and be like, yeah, I still have my extra vote. Ben wrote that like the name that way. I wrote the cursive version of the name. And it could be like, oh, all four of us voted this way, Mo. You can't get mad at just me because all of us voted this way. It wasn't just like Charlie's Angels flipping on you, it was the majority.
Yeah, I mean, also, Ben might go against her and might use Mo to get Maria out. That wouldn't be a very smart play, I don't think. But I think it's going to be really juicy when goes to tribal again, I feel like, or coming back to the beach from tribal. Like, they just have a lot to hash out.
Yeah, Jem gets voted out with the idol. Seemed a little bit salty. She didn't say goodbye or anything. She just walked out.
Yep. Poor Jem.
But I'm interested to see where Mariah goes next week. The merge is next week. Also, we have a question in the chat from Sarah asking, do we think that Hunter is going to find the idol and only lose one vote or not find it and lose two? Sarah, is not sure how that works if he doesn't find it and loses his vote twice. I think he would, if he doesn't find it, lose the vote twice. One for, I guess you would lose it indefinitely, maybe until you found the idol, or there's probably some clause like, oh, you can't go the entire game without voting if you never find it, kind of thing. But I think you would at least lose two.
Yeah, I really doubt that Hunter isn't going to find it though, because both Jem and Tiff were able to find it extremely quickly. And so Hunter has been kind of gassed up to be like Mr. Amazing. So I would be very surprised if he didn't find his immediately as well. So I think he's probably only going to lose the one vote. But
Tiffany's one was doing the scramble puzzle. Jem's one was doing the perimeter and math. Hunter's one is going to be labeled these other 20 seasons in chronological order.
if that were the case, poor Hunter.
Yeah, then he might lose it indefinitely until you can, I guess, process of elimination, you might be able to get it if you've got like unlimited guesses, but it'd still be hard because there's a lot of like combinations of 20 things.
For sure.
But I'm excited. I can't believe the merge is next week. It feels like very soon, honestly, but I guess that makes sense that it's now.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, let us know in the comments down below what you thought of this episode. Were you happy that Purple finally won something, or did you want to see them go to Tribal to see if Q's plan of fake quitting would actually work, or Kenzie would still get voted out? Do you think that Maria and Charlie made the right move in going with the men instead of the women? Do you think that Jem overplayed her hand a little bit with this Beware advantage? I'm excited for next week. We don't even have that many like advantages in the game, just 2 idols, maybe Tevin's extra vote, but I think that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited for next week. As always, thank you all so much for watching. We will see you all